Billionaire kicks ex-wife out for a fake innocent. He regrets and begs her to return. It's too late. Prepare to be swept into a whirlwind of heartbreak, betrayal, and mid-regrets that come far too late. This is the story of James Harrington, a proud billionaire with everything except the sense to know who truly loves him, and Eva Ramirez, a spirited young woman from humble beginnings who dares to dream. When James allows jealousy and deceit to cloud his vision, he casts Eva out of his world for another's sake, unaware of the devastating truth that lurks beneath. By the time he sees the light, it's already too late, and in that moment, he realizes the cost of losing her forever. Eva Ramirez never thought of herself as special. Growing up in a cramped apartment on the outskirts of San Diego, she was more accustomed to survival than to living in style. Her father, Manuel, worked 2 jobs, one at a local mechanics shop and another as a night guard, just to keep their small family afloat. Her mother, Lucia, took on domestic cleaning work, often returning home after dark. Eva learned from an early age that life demanded resilience. Still, she harbored a dream that glimmered behind her dark brown eyes. To one day break free from the chains of poverty and build a life she could be proud of. The first hint of something greater came when she was accepted into a prestigious business administration program on a partial scholarship at Harrington University. The institution was partially funded by a philanthropic trust associated with the Harrington family, one of the wealthiest dynasties on the West Coast. Few people actually caught glimpses of them, and rumors of their lavish lifestyle circulated every time a black limousine was spotted outside the campus gates. Eva was too focused on her studies to care much about gossip, yet she couldn't help imagining what it would be like to sit at a table among the wealthy and powerful, sharing innovative ideas instead of simply struggling to pay her rent. Her scholarship covered half of her tuition, but the remaining half weighed heavily on her and her family. Eva worked part-time at the campus library, shelving books and assisting students who needed help with research. She also took on a weekend job at a small floral boutique where she cleaned and prepared bouquets. She often emerged from that shop covered in bits of leaves and flower petals, her hands smelling of fresh roses, lilies, and baby's breath. It was tiring work, but she carried out her tasks with an unwavering determination. One evening, as Eva helped lock up the library, she noticed a sleek black SUV pull up to the campus's administrative building. Wearing a hooded sweatshirt and her library badge, she watched from a distance as an imposing man in a tailored suit stepped out. He was older, maybe in his mid-50s, accompanied by a younger man who exuded confidence. Whispers among the library staff confirmed the older gentleman was Christopher Palmer, one of the school's biggest donors, who had allegedly partnered with philanthropists like Bill Gates in the past to advance education. But it was the younger man who caught her attention. Tall, impeccably dressed, with an air of casual authority, he possessed a chiseled jawline and keen green eyes that seemed to size up everything around him. Eva wondered who he was. Little did she know that this fleeting glance at dusk was her first glimpse of James Harrington, heir to the Harrington Empire, a man about to set her life on an unforeseen trajectory. Feeling a swell of curiosity and a stirring in her chest, Eva brushed off the sensation. She had finals to prepare for and shifts to juggle. Little did she imagine that in a few months fate would spin her world upside down and entangle her with the man she just glimpsed, a man so far above her station in life that even her wildest dreams hadn't dared to reach him. James Harrington was born with a silver spoon, if silver spoons were still in style. The Harrington estate was one of the oldest and most respected in Southern California. James's grandfather, Edwin Harrington, had built a multi-billion-dollar business empire focused on real estate, luxury hotels, and philanthropic investments. As an only child, James grew up in an environment where diamond chandeliers were commonplace, high tea with visiting dignitaries was normal, and weekend trips to Europe were simply part of life. Despite the material opulence, James felt a constant sense of pressure on his shoulders, the legacy he was expected to uphold. His father, Daniel Harrington, often reminded him that the family name carried responsibilities that extended beyond mere profit. They were expected to be thought leaders and philanthropic patrons who shaped society. James took this to heart, devouring business books, forging connections at charity events, and maintaining a pristine public image. Yet beneath the polished surface, James sometimes yearned for authenticity. He had grown up around people who wanted something, business owners pitching deals, colleagues angling for his favor, and socialites desperate for the Harrington name in their circle. Over time, he developed a protective shell, suspecting everyone he met of having an ulterior motive. Rarely did he meet anyone who cared for him as a person rather than as a wallet. On the night Ava saw him outside the administrative building, James was there to finalize discussions about a scholarship program for underserved students. The Harrington Trust was preparing to boost funding, and Christopher Palmer, an old family friend, had arranged a meeting with the dean. James tried to appear engaged, but the repetitive nature of these formalities wore him down. When the meeting ended, he stepped back onto the campus grounds. A small group of students still dotted the quad, and he noticed a young woman with a braid swishing over her shoulder as she locked the library doors. She glanced in his direction, but the moment was fleeting. Something stirred in him. Maybe it was the normalcy of her simple act of closing up a library, or the quiet determination in her posture. But for a moment, he wondered what her life might be like. Dismissing the thought, he told himself he was just exhausted. People on campus often looked at him with starstruck eyes if they recognized him. A sense of cynicism overcame him as he climbed into the back seat of the SUV. He wasn't in the habit of trusting easily. Surely this girl was no different from the rest, he mused. Still, a quiet voice in the back of his mind refused to let go of that fleeting image. He found himself thinking of the library late at night, imagining what it felt like to stand there with nothing but textbooks and quiet resolve for company. Maybe, just maybe, he was glimpsing a life he'd never experienced, a life unburdened by endless dinner galas and social demands. That night, as the SUV glided away, James felt a rare pang of curiosity about the people who would benefit from the Harrington scholarships, never suspecting that the one capturing his thoughts might soon capture his heart. 3 months later, Ava was thrilled to learn she was selected for a small but prestigious internship. As part of a business development elective, she would be working alongside the Harrington Foundation's team to organize a charity event. This event, celebrating the expansion of scholarships, was set to be hosted at the Harrington Plaza Hotel, a swanky venue perched on the coastline overlooking the Pacific Ocean. This was more than just an internship. It was an opportunity to stand out, gain connections, and possibly secure a recommendation for future career prospects. Ava arrived early on her first day, dressed in a simple navy blue blazer and pencil skirt, her most professional outfit, purchased second-hand but pressed to perfection. Her heart thumped with both excitement and anxiety. The reception area reeked of sophistication, adorned with marble floors, gold trim, and massive floral arrangements. The staff moved about with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Ava tried not to stare in awe as she introduced herself at the front desk. A poised, impeccably groomed woman named Eloise, clearly a long-standing employee of the Harrington Foundation, greeted Ava and directed her to a conference room. Inside, a handful of interns and junior associates sat at a long table, focusing on their smartphones or laptops. Everyone here seemed confident, well-heeled, and from families that didn't have to fight for every scrap of opportunity. Ava could almost smell their privilege. Feeling out of place, she quietly took a seat, determined to work hard and not let her nerves show. An hour into the meeting, a slight commotion stirred near the door. Instantly, everyone stood. Ava followed suit. Feeling the tension in the air, James Harrington had arrived. He offered a polite smile and a nod to the group, taking his seat at the head of the table. His presence was commanding yet strangely subdued. Ava recognized him as the man she had seen months ago outside the university building. Though he wore a tailored suit, his eyes seemed weary, as though he'd already had a full day of dealing with weighty matters. As Eloise and the department head laid out plans for the scholarship gala, James occasionally interjected with questions or suggestions. Finally, he looked around the table. "I want to ensure this event highlights real stories," he said. "It's not just about us donating money. It's about the students whose lives we're changing. We need a genuine voice." His gaze roamed across the interns, skipping from face to face until it landed on Ava. "You," he said, leaning forward slightly. "What's your name?" Heart pounding, she spoke softly. "I'm Ava Ramirez." James nodded. "Ava, tell us a bit about yourself and your perspective on this scholarship program." With trembling hands, she began to speak about how financial support for education transformed not just individual lives, but also entire communities. She mentioned her own background, though she didn't dwell on it, and shared why she believed heartfelt stories would resonate. To her surprise, James listened intently. When she finished, he offered a quiet, "Thank you," before turning to the next person on his list. But even as he moved on, his attention snagged on the earnest sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't posturing or seeking personal gain. She spoke from a place of raw experience. Little did either of them realize that this moment would be the first spark of a bond destined to be tested by lies, deception, and heartbreak. Over the next few weeks, Ava plunged into her internship responsibilities with unwavering devotion. She coordinated vendors, arranged for keynote speakers, and worked with fellow interns to design promotional materials for the event. Though the tasks were demanding, she was exhilarated, feeling each day that she was edging closer to the dream she'd always nurtured, the possibility of a better life. James Harrington, meanwhile, watched from the periphery. He had final oversight on the event, but it was the operational staff and junior executives who typically handled day-to-day minutiae. Yet he found himself lingering at the foundation offices more often, asking for progress updates and offering suggestions. Whenever Ava was present, he seemed to have a renewed sense of interest. She was different, fresh, unjaded, and deeply passionate. Unlike many interns who tried to curry favor or flaunt their credentials, Ava was both hard-working and humble. It struck a chord in him he couldn't quite name. The foundation staff noticed James's unusual level of involvement. Rumors started circulating that he was personally invested in the success of this particular gala. Some assumed it was because of a new philanthropic angle. Others whispered that perhaps the Harrington heir had finally found a project that spoke to him. No one guessed that his fascination might be linked to a shy girl who wore second-hand clothes and typed fervently on an outdated laptop. One afternoon, Ava was struggling to move a heavy stack of tablecloth samples from the loading dock into the event prep room. She refused help, politely but firmly, from the hotel staff, wanting to prove her competence. That was when James happened to walk by. Without a word, he stepped in, gently lifting half the load off her arms. Surprised, she looked up at him. "Oh, I'm fine. I can manage," she insisted, though grateful for the relief on her strained muscles. He shrugged, a slight smile gracing his lips. "It's all right. I have a free moment." They carried the stacks together, depositing them on a table. The motion was so mundane, yet it felt charged with unspoken understanding. After the samples were set down, Ava wiped her brow and nervously tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. She was about to thank him when James asked softly, "How are you finding your internship here?" "Is everything going smoothly?" She nodded. "Yes, Mr. Harrington, everyone has been supportive. I'm learning a lot." He studied her face for a moment. "Good. Let me know if you need anything." Then, as if remembering his polished persona, he quickly added, "We're glad to have someone so dedicated on board." For a moment, it felt like they were just two people sharing a simple conversation, far removed from the stark differences in their social standing. Then James's personal assistant appeared, brandishing a clipboard and a phone, reminding him of a pressing call. Just like that, the moment was over, replaced by the formalities of his everyday life. But as he walked away, James felt something shift inside him. He recognized Ava's sincerity and sensed a refreshing authenticity that was rare in his circle. For her part, Ava felt both admiration and a confusing spark. She scolded herself to stay grounded. He was James Harrington after all. Men like him didn't fall for girls like her. And yet, in her daydreams, she couldn't help picturing what it would be like to be seen by him not as a scholarship student or an intern, but as a woman who could love him wholeheartedly. As the gala approached, the Harrington Plaza Hotel was abuzz with excitement. High-profile guests confirmed their attendance, including notable philanthropists like Mackenzie Scott, who was reportedly making a surprise appearance. The event promised to be one of the most talked-about charitable evenings of the year, blending glamour and goodwill in the hallmark style of the Harrington family. In the midst of this flurry, a newcomer arrived at the foundation offices, Marina Donovan. She was introduced as a communications specialist, recently hired to bolster the foundation's media outreach. Slender and poised, with striking blue eyes and a cascade of blonde curls, Marina had an air of confidence that drew attention wherever she went. From the moment she set foot in the office, Marina made it clear she was aiming high. She positioned herself close to James Harrington, offering unsolicited advice on how to spin the gala's press coverage and how to maximize social media engagement. She knew all the right buzzwords and demonstrated a savvy understanding of brand building. James, initially ambivalent, found her arguments compelling. She was articulate, polished, and undeniably charismatic. It didn't take long for Marina to notice Ava and the subtle rapport that existed between Ava and James. A sharp observer, Marina picked up on how James's eyes lingered on Ava when he thought no one else was watching. She also noticed Ava's tendency to flush whenever James was near. Something in Marina's calculating mind seemed to flicker, and a knowing smirk often curled her lips. One afternoon, while Ava was loading event invitations into envelopes, Marina sauntered over. "You're the scholarship intern, right?" she asked, in a tone that balanced feigned sweetness with a hint of condescension. Ava nodded politely. "I'm helping coordinate the gala logistics." Marina placed her manicured hand on the desk, leaning in slightly. "I've heard such good things about your work. James has mentioned you more than once." Ava's eyes widened at the mention of James's name and how intimately Marina said it. She forced a polite smile, unsure how to respond. "I'm just doing my best to make the event a success," she offered. Marina's gaze flickered across Ava's modest outfit, her second-hand blazer, her scuffed heels. "I'm sure you are," she purred, standing upright again. "Keep it up. If you ever need advice on professional matters, I'm here." With that, Marina moved on, leaving Ava with a strange chill. She couldn't exactly pinpoint why, but something about Marina felt disingenuous. Perhaps it was the too bright smile or the faint mockery in her eyes. Nevertheless, Ava focused on her tasks, determined not to let negativity distract her. Behind the scenes, Marina wasted no time ingratiating herself further with James. She frequently brought him reports, suggested refinements to the gala program, and stayed late crafting press releases. The staff started to talk. Was Marina aiming to become James's closest confidant, or more? For James, Marina was a breath of professional fresh air, particularly at a time when so many foundation staffers were overworked. He appreciated her initiative and, at face value, saw no reason to doubt her intentions. But as the gala drew closer, subtle friction began building between Marina and Ava. Though unspoken, it crackled with the energy of competing flames. Little would Ava know that Marina Donovan had her own hidden agenda, and she would stop at nothing to see it through, even if that meant destroying anyone who got in her way. At last, the night of the gala arrived. The Harrington Plaza Hotel brimmed with opulence. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, reflecting off polished marble floors. An entire fleet of luxury cars lined up outside, each depositing dignitaries, celebrities and donors onto a glittering red carpet. Cameras flashed, capturing the arrival of philanthropic heavyweights and social media influencers alike. Ava stood behind the scenes, her heart pounding with both nerves and excitement. She wore a borrowed cocktail dress, an elegant black gown that a kind co-worker had lent her. The dress fit her perfectly, though Ava felt slightly self-conscious. She reminded herself, "This is for work. You're not here to mingle, you're here to ensure everything runs smoothly." Elsewhere, James Harrington welcomed key guests, shaking hands and offering measured smiles. Dressed in a crisp tuxedo, he looked every inch the regal heir. Throughout the week, he had felt an unfamiliar current of excitement, anticipating seeing Ava in a gala setting. He'd even asked Eloise if Ava would be present on the main floor or restricted to backstage duties. When Eloise assured him that Ava would be overseeing the flow of the event in the ballroom, James couldn't hide his smile. Marina Donovan, dressed in a stunning sequined gown, seemed determined to remain glued to James's side. She introduced him to relevant press members, guided him toward beneficial photo ops, and whispered advice into his ear about which interviews might garner the best headlines. To outside observers, she played the role of a sophisticated partner, though officially she was merely the new communications strategist. Still, tongues were already wagging. Some people assumed she and James were an item. Ava roamed the periphery of the ballroom, headset on, making sure the scheduled events proceeded like clockwork. She coordinated the cues for the keynote addresses and ensured that the student speakers were mic'd properly. When it was time for the scholarship recipients to share their stories, she quietly encouraged them backstage, reminding them to take a breath and speak from the heart. Finally, Ava ventured onto the ballroom floor to check on the arrangements. She felt her pulse spike when she saw James across the room. He was laughing with a cluster of guests, Marina at his side. The glow of 1,000 lights danced on the polished surfaces of the room, and for a moment it felt like Ava and James were part of a storybook. Then reality rushed back. She was staff and he was the host. As the night wore on, however, James managed to slip away from Marina's watchful presence. Weaving through the crowd, he sought out Ava. He found her near the dessert buffet, busy directing catering staff. He tapped her shoulder gently, and she turned, eyes widening. "Mr. Harrington, James," she stammered. "You look wonderful tonight," he said, voice low enough that no one else could hear. "I never thanked you properly for all your work on this event. You've done an incredible job." Ava blushed, her cheeks burning under the soft lighting. "Thank you, but really, it's a team effort." Before either could say more, Marina materialized out of nowhere. "James, the media wants a few words," she announced sweetly, her arm subtly sliding around his elbow. She cast a cool glance at Ava, who immediately felt like an intruder. With an apologetic smile, James allowed himself to be led away by Marina. As he departed, Ava's heart gave a twinge she didn't quite understand. She tried to refocus on her tasks, ignoring the stabbing pang of jealousy. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that Marina Donovan was silently declaring war, a war for James's attention, and perhaps his heart. In the weeks following the gala, Ava's internship wound down. She returned to her normal class schedule and part-time jobs, but her mind often drifted back to the dazzling night. She'd proven her organizational skills, even receiving a personal note of thanks from James Harrington for her exceptional work. Although the note was short and formal, she read it multiple times, her heart fluttering at the memory of his gentle compliment on her appearance. For James, the gala's success cemented his belief that genuine stories and real effort could outperform any polished PR campaign. He had seen the gratitude on scholarship recipients' faces, and each time he recalled Ava's steadfast composure under the glitzy pressure, he felt a twinge of admiration. Much to Marina's frustration, James occasionally dropped by the university campus without notifying her, eager to see if Ava might be around. Sometimes he found her studying in the library or grabbing coffee between shifts. Their encounters were brief, but charged with warmth. Marina didn't take long to notice this pattern. She made it her mission to learn everything about Ava. It was easy enough. A few discreet inquiries around the foundation offices and the campus revealed that Ava was from a working-class family, juggling scholarships and multiple jobs, harboring big aspirations. Marina also discovered that Ava had no powerful connections or wealthy relatives to back her up. In short, Ava was an easy target for sabotage. Armed with this knowledge, Marina began to drip small toxic insinuations into James's ears. She'd casually mention how some staff members were rumored to be eyeing him for personal gain. She'd bring up stories, fabricated of course, about how certain scholarship students tried to milk wealthy benefactors for extra money. James, wary of opportunists and used to people trying to exploit his status, listened with cautious interest. When these rumors remained too vague, Marina upped her game. She manipulated a few financial documents, forging a discrepancy that hinted Ava had been requesting additional funds beyond her allocated scholarship. She planted the doctored paperwork in a pile of routine scholarship reports, ensuring James would stumble upon it. One afternoon, James sat in his office, scanning a series of documents, while Marina hovered near the door. He frowned when he reached a particular file, eyes narrowing at the suspicious numbers. The file suggested repeated extra grant requests tied to Ava Ramirez's name. The amounts weren't massive, but they were enough to raise eyebrows. "This is odd," James said, tapping the page with his pen. "I thought Ava's scholarship was already covered. Why would there be additional requests?" Marina approached, feigning surprise. "Oh dear, I'm sure there's a misunderstanding. But maybe it's worth investigating. We have to protect the Foundation's resources, right?" Her expression was a perfect mask of concern, but beneath it lay a triumph she contained with practiced skill. James didn't want to believe Ava would do anything underhanded, but the numbers were right there in black and white, and so the seeds of doubt took root. Still, a part of him balked, wanting to give Ava the benefit of the doubt. Unaware of Marina's treachery, he couldn't see how easily he was being manipulated. Meanwhile, Ava went about her daily life, oblivious to the storms gathering on the horizon. She was preparing for final exams and hoping her post-internship contacts might lead to a job offer. Little did she know, her budding closeness with James was about to be twisted into a weapon against her, orchestrated by the very person who stood smiling at James's side. James wrestled with his suspicions for several days. He couldn't simply accuse Ava without proof, and he didn't want to alarm her prematurely. But he also knew he couldn't ignore potential misuse of funds. Torn between doubt and his growing admiration for Ava, he retreated into himself, becoming short-tempered and distant. Marina expertly played on his hesitation, feigning sympathy while reminding him of his duty to safeguard the Harrington name. Eventually, James asked Ava to meet him in a small private office at the Foundation's headquarters. Feeling a sense of foreboding she couldn't name, Ava arrived punctually. The moment she stepped inside, she saw the seriousness in his expression. Gone was the gentle warmth she'd come to treasure. "Is something wrong?" she asked softly, setting her purse on a nearby chair. James gestured for her to sit, then slid the doctored documents across the desk. "These reports came to my attention," he said, voice tinged with quiet accusation. "They suggest you've been requesting additional scholarship funds." Confusion flickered across Ava's face. She frowned as she scanned the files, her stomach twisting. I've never seen these before," she managed. "I promise you, James, I wouldn't do this. I don't understand how my name could be on these requests." James studied her intently, searching her eyes for deception. "Marina brought them to me. She said she found discrepancies. The amounts are tied directly to your student account." A wave of dread swept over Ava. "It's not true," she insisted, a tremor in her voice. "There must be a mistake." James wanted to believe her, but the evidence, false though it was, seemed damning. Rising from his chair, he ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "Ava, Look, I've seen too many people with financial struggles resort to desperate measures. If you needed more support, you could have approached me or the foundation directly. This," he pointed at the documents, "isn't the way." Hot tears threatened to spill from Ava's eyes as she grasped the magnitude of the accusation. "I would never steal," she choked out. This is my entire future. Why would I sabotage it like this?" A flicker of empathy crossed James's face, but his guard remained up. "Marina says the finance team double-checked the transactions. They lead back to your account. I can't just overlook that." Ava swallowed hard. Marina, she wanted to say something negative, but she had no concrete evidence. She merely sensed that Marina disliked her. There has to be an error, a setup. "I don't know why this is happening, but please, you have to believe me." Yet James's anger and sense of betrayal overruled his better judgment. In his mind, the numeric details were indisputable, and Marina had never given him a reason to doubt her loyalty. Shutting his eyes momentarily, he spoke in a near whisper. "I think it's best if we end all association. You can keep your scholarship for this semester, but I'll have the foundation re-evaluate your status moving forward. You won't be working with us again." Ava stood, her cheeks burning with humiliation. She wanted to shout, to plead, to prove her innocence. But the heartbreak in James's eyes, mingled with anger, froze the words on her tongue. Gathering what remained of her dignity, she murmured, "I understand," then grabbed her purse and walked out. As she left the building, tears finally spilled down her cheeks. She could scarcely believe the cruel twist. All her hard work, her blossoming feelings for James, it all lay in tatters, because of a carefully orchestrated lie she couldn't yet fully comprehend. Days bled into weeks. Ava withdrew from campus social life, consumed by shame and anger. She spent hours trying to track down the alleged transactions or find any clue to prove her innocence. But the bureaucratic tangle of foundation finances and scholarship disbursements was too massive for her to unravel alone. Every inquiry led to a dead end or a polite dismissal. Her parents noticed her distress, but Ava chose not to burden them with the details. She simply told them her internship ended awkwardly. Believing in their daughter's integrity, they encouraged her to focus on her finals and let the truth eventually surface. Yet as each day passed without any sign of vindication, Ava's heart grew heavier. Meanwhile, James Harrington was not at peace. His decision weighed on him. He replayed Ava's devastated expression, her tear-filled pleas of innocence. Late at night, he found himself staring at the starless sky from his penthouse balcony, wondering if he had made a grave mistake. Marina was quick to soothe his worries whenever he voiced them, reminding him that the evidence was incontrovertible. "You've done the right thing, James," she would say, her voice honeyed with reassurance. "We can't risk the Harrington name." Still, a part of James refused to let go of the memory of Ava's sincerity. He launched a private investigation, hiring an external auditor to comb through the foundation's records. Unaware that Marina had covered her tracks meticulously, he hoped to find some anomaly or reveal a mistake that would exonerate Ava. But if anything emerged, it was buried under layers of carefully planted false data. Marina, meanwhile, consolidated her position in James's life. She recognized the vulnerability created by his guilt and offered a comforting presence. She dropped hints about philanthropic ventures they could explore together, painting a future where they were a power couple in both business and charity. Journalists began speculating about their relationship, and whenever asked, Marina would blush coyly or give a non-committal smile. But the real prize Marina sought was James's complete trust and the Harrington Empire's influence. She could see cracks forming in his resolve whenever Ava's name came up, or whenever he questioned the authenticity of the so-called evidence. So she exploited his fears, telling him stories about high-profile gold diggers who had ruined other wealthy families. "I just don't want you to be hurt," she'd say, gently touching his arm. James found himself caught in a web of emotions. His mind told him the data was too damning to ignore, yet his heart remembered how Ava's eyes shone with genuine conviction. He tried to move forward, dedicating himself to new projects, but something vital felt missing. As for Ava, she struggled to concentrate on her final exams, battling waves of anxiety. The only solace came from a few close friends who believed her wholeheartedly. Still, the sense of betrayal, both from James and the system she had trusted, gnawed at her soul. She wondered if leaving San Diego for good might be her only hope of reclaiming her life. Unbeknownst to her, fate was about to make that decision for her, propelling her onto a path of self-discovery that would ultimately force James to confront the depth of his mistake. Unable to bear the stifling atmosphere of accusation and the daily reminder of a ruined dream, Ava decided to leave San Diego. She had just enough savings from her part-time jobs to sustain herself briefly. With little fanfare, she packed her belongings into 2 suitcases and bought a bus ticket north to Los Angeles, hoping the sprawling city might offer her a fresh start. Her arrival was far from glamorous. She rented a small windowless room in a shared apartment, taking on a waitress job at a local diner. Days were long, nights lonely, but she was determined to carve out a new life. Her ambition remained unbroken. She would find a way to continue her education, even if the Harrington Foundation's scholarship was lost. Step by step, she resolved to rebuild her reputation. Initially, the hustle of LA swallowed her, but soon she discovered pockets of kindness. A manager at the diner named Josie recognized Ava's potential and allowed her flexible shifts so she could attend community college courses part-time. A regular customer, Thomas Caldwell, a middle-aged accountant who had once worked at top firms, offered to tutor her in finance free of charge. These small gestures became lifelines, helping Ava feel that not everyone in the world was out to exploit or betray her. Back in San Diego, James heard rumors that Ava had left. The news unsettled him more than he cared to admit. He had discreetly asked a colleague at the university about her, only to learn she had withdrawn from most campus activities. The guilt pressed down heavier on him. Marina tried to placate him, suggesting that Ava's departure was proof of her wrongdoing. But James couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. In a moment of unguarded honesty, James confided his turmoil to Christopher Palmer, the older philanthropist who had introduced him to the scholarship program in the first place. Christopher listened intently, stroking his salt and pepper beard as James spoke of the evidence, Ava's denial, and her abrupt exit. After a thoughtful silence, Christopher murmured, "James, never discount the possibility of foul play. If your instincts are shouting that something's wrong, they probably are." Galvanized by Christopher's words, James intensified his private investigation. He replaced the external auditor with a top-tier forensic accountant recommended by Christopher. Days stretched into weeks as the new investigator combed through digital footprints, cross-referencing system logs, scrutinizing every transaction. All the while, Marina kept close tabs on the situation, using her influence to steer James away from certain leads. Whenever the forensic accountant asked for additional data, she claimed it was in the process of being archived or pinned, blame on IT system failures. But Christopher's recommendation carried weight, and the accountant was persistent, refusing to let the matter drop until every stone was turned over. Unaware of the fierce internal battle raging in James's world, Ava forced herself to keep moving. Sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, she'd recall James's laugh or the way he had once looked at her during the gala, and tears would prick her eyes. She couldn't deny that she missed him, even though he'd been the one to betray her. Yet she vowed she would not beg for his belief or return to that humiliating chapter of her life. She had to stand on her own, even if her heart still ached with memories of what could have been. Weeks later, on a balmy afternoon, James's phone buzzed incessantly. He glanced down to see multiple missed calls from Christopher Palmer. His heart sank with a mixture of fear and relief. He suspected this might be related to the investigation. Without hesitation, he stepped out of a board meeting to call back. Christopher's voice was charged. "James, we've found something." The forensic accountant uncovered logs indicating someone tampered with the scholarship database. They traced the changes to Marina Donovan's login credentials. James felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. A swirl of emotions, rage, guilt, disbelief, collided inside him. "Marina," he repeated, voice wavering, "are you certain?" "Beyond a doubt," Christopher replied. "It appears she fabricated the requests tied to Ava Ramirez's account. She may have had help, or perhaps she used an IT staffer's oversight, but the breadcrumbs lead straight to her." Shock gave way to a white-hot fury as James realized the magnitude of what he had done. He had believed the worst about Ava, kicked her out, destroyed her standing, based on a lie. All because he trusted someone who had cunningly inserted herself into his life. Fury coursed through him, but beneath it lay a haunting remorse. How could he have been so blind? Immediately, James summoned Marina to his office. His tone over the phone brokered no argument. When she arrived, she wore a careful expression of concern. "James, what's—" He slammed a folder onto his desk, pages of data flying loose. "Don't lie to me," he spat, voice shaking with restraint. "We know you tampered with the database to frame Ava. Why? What did you stand to gain?" Marina's face went pale. Then she tried to muster indignant outrage. "This is absurd. Who's feeding you these lies?" But James's blazing eyes told her there was no escape. She attempted to weave excuses, claiming she did it to protect the foundation or that someone else used her login. Her stories twisted in circles, lacking coherence. James stood rigid, fists clenched as she babbled. Finally, she sank into a chair, eyes moist with shame. "Fine, I did it. But you don't understand. I've worked for people like you all my life, and I needed to secure my position. You were slipping away from me, drawn to her. I had to make sure there was no competition. I've seen how these games are played in high society." Appalled, James could barely speak. The weight of his betrayal to Ava pressed on his chest. He picked up his phone, glaring at Marina. "Pack your things. You're done here. And I'm pressing charges if the legal team deems it necessary." Marina faltered, tears of anger and desperation in her eyes, but she could see there was no saving herself. She staggered out, leaving James with a fury that quickly turned inward. He had been so quick to judge Ava. Now he needed to find her, to apologize, to explain, do anything in his power to make amends. But as he scrambled to piece together what little he knew of her new whereabouts, James feared the worst, that it might already be too late to fix what he had so recklessly broken. Panicked and determined, James wasted no time launching a frantic search for Ava. Calling in favors, he tapped into networks that spanned from San Diego to Los Angeles. Days turned to weeks with no solid lead, until finally a contact at a staffing agency mentioned a young woman fitting Ava's description had applied for waitress positions in LA. James flew to Los Angeles at once, thoughts of contrition swirling in his mind. As the city lights glimmered below on his late-night flight, he rehearsed the words he would say to Ava, imagining how he would fall at her feet if necessary to show his remorse. The moment his plane landed, he ignored his usual chauffeured car and hailed a taxi, anxious to cut through the city in search of her. Through a combination of guesswork and tips from old acquaintances, he tracked Ava to the small diner where she worked. Stepping inside, he was assaulted by the aroma of fried food and the chatter of late-night patrons. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he scanned the room. Then he spotted her, carrying a tray laden with dishes, wearing a tired but determined look. His heart pounded at the sight of her. She appeared so worn, yet still so inherently Ava. When their eyes met, her tray nearly slipped from her fingers. A rush of emotion, shock, anger, heartbreak, flickered across her face. Setting the tray down, she walked over, trembling slightly. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice hollow. James swallowed hard. He removed his suit jacket, feeling the heat of the moment. "I found out the truth. Marina framed you. I've fired her. I'm so sorry, Ava. I was blinded. I should have believed you. Tears pooled in Ava's eyes, but they were tears of frustration as much as sorrow. That's all I wanted, James, she whispered, bitterness lacing her tone. For you to believe me. For you to remember who I am. I know, he croaked. I was a fool. Please, let me make this right. I can clear your name, reinstate your scholarship, offer you anything you need. Ava shook her head. It's not about the scholarship anymore. It's about trust. You looked at me and decided I was a thief. You never gave me the chance to defend myself. Her voice broke as tears slipped down her cheeks. I lost everything I worked for overnight because of your judgment. James reached out to wipe her tears, but she stepped back. An older waitress stepped forward, gently touching Ava's arm. You all right, hun? She asked softly. Ava nodded, then asked for a quick break. She led James outside, into the neon-lit parking lot. Tensions crackled between them. I don't know if I can forgive you, she admitted, her voice trembling with raw honesty. What we had, maybe it was just friendship or something more. It's shattered now. How can I go back to trusting you when you didn't trust me? James's voice shook. I'll do anything, I swear. I'll help you rebuild, get you through school, find you a better place. Just give me a chance. A lonely wind swept through the empty lot, rustling wrappers and leaves. Ava gazed at him, tears reflecting the fluorescent glare. I found a way to stand on my own, she said quietly. I can't let you swoop in and fix it for me, not when you were the one who broke it. I need time. Maybe one day I'll find it in me to forgive you, but right now I can't go back. Heartbroken, James bowed his head. He realized that for all his wealth, for all his power, he was utterly helpless in this moment. Ava, with her strong spirit, deserved better than his knee-jerk betrayals. When she turned and walked away, the finality of her footsteps echoed in his mind. He watched her slip into the diner, the door shutting between them with a muted clang. And with that, James understood the cruel truth. He had come too late. In the end, trust is the fragile thread that can unravel the grandest tapestry of love. James Harrington discovered that wealth and power cannot guarantee loyalty or honesty. Ava Ramirez learned that sometimes the greatest validation comes from rising above betrayal, fueled by self-respect and courage. Their story, fraught with heartbreak and revelations, stands as a testament to the power of faith in one's own worth and the high cost of casting doubt on another's character. If you found yourself captivated by the twists, shattered hearts, and hard-earned truths in this gripping tale, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe James and Ava could ever reconcile, or is some damage irreversible? Join us for more poignant stories, where every ending is just the beginning of a new understanding. Thank you for watching.